Thank you for tuning into Beast Watch News News Brief at the most current and comprehensive Bible prophecy website on the internet, beastwatchnews.com. All Bible prophecy news, all the time. Stay tuned for news. Today's scripture reading is Micah 7:14. Feed your people with your rod, the flock of your heritage, which dwell solitarily in the wood in the midst of Carmel. Let them feed in Bashan and Gilead as in the days of old. Israeli Housing Minister Uri Ariel announced on Tuesday an indefinite freeze on settlement construction in the occupied West Bank and Arab East Jerusalem, as the United States is trying to kickstart Palestinian-Israeli peace talks. He said, "We confirm a freeze on building behind the Green Line until further notice, in order to avoid a confrontation with the United States." IDF Major General Nitzan alone announced that the Palestinian administration in the West Bank has tried to help the latest U.S. peacemaking drive by doing its part. It is quietly cutting off funds for grassroots campaigners against Israel's occupation of the territory. At the G8 summit meeting this week, China has decided to announce that it will be adopting a more active role in the Mideast peace process. China's point man on Mideast affairs on Tuesday said the country's new administration is adopting an active approach in supporting the Palestine-Israel peace process, but he has no desire to compete with the U.S. for influence in the region. Wu Zike, China's special envoy to the Middle East, made the remarks on the sidelines of the UN international meeting in support of Israeli-Palestinian peace in Beijing. It was the first time China has hosted such a meeting, which came on the heels of simultaneous visits to the country by Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu last month, and a 4-point proposal for a solution to the Palestine question proposed by President Xi Jinping. Major General Nitzan alone yesterday also announced that failure to restart Israeli-Palestinian negotiations could stir unrest in the West Bank. And sure enough, here comes the rockets flying from Gaza. A code red warning siren sounded in Ashkelon and surrounding areas early Wednesday morning, according to an IDF spokesperson. Shortly after the silence went off, 3 rockets fell in open areas, landing in Palestinian areas, according to Israeli radio. No doubt that was unintended consequences. In Syria, according to the EU Times, early releases of security notes circulating in the Kremlin provided the office of the president by diplomats accompanying President Putin during the G8 meetings with Western leaders are confirming that Barack Obama, along with British Prime Minister David Cameron, are preparing for all-out holy war in the Middle East and are siding with Sunni Muslims. Big surprise there, since Obama is a Sunni Muslim, against the Shiites and Christian minorities of the most volatile of regions. Not being told to the masses of Western peoples by their propaganda media organs is that the current war in Syria has morphed into one of the most dangerous religious wars in all of human history, and was confirmed this past September to be such by Turkish Prime Minister Tayyip Erdogan. The G8 has urged Syria peace talks as the fighting was flaring in the north, but they failed to mention a date. However, Putin and Obama have agreed to push both sides into peace talks in Geneva. U.S. war games in Jordan do seem to be going well, and they are sending a signal to Assad. They are dubbed Eager Lion, and that's a 12-day exercise involving combined land, air, and sea maneuvers across the country. It seeks to bring together 8,000 personnel from 19 Arab and European nations to train on border security, irregular warfare, terrorism, and counterinsurgency. And it's meant to be a signal to Bashar al-Assad. Clashes erupted in South Lebanon on Tuesday between unknown gunmen and followers of a radical Sunni cleric, security officials said. In the latest apparent outbreak of violence between Lebanese factions supporting opposing sides in the civil war in neighboring Syria, automatic rifles and rocket-propelled grenades were being used in the fighting in an eastern suburb of the port of Sidon, according to security officials, but there were no immediate reports of casualties. Protests are still going on in Brazil, and the Tea Party in America is going to protest today against the IRS. Tea Party activists from the D.C. tri-state area are descending on Washington with a single message: audit the IRS. The protest is in response to the IRS's recent admission that it targeted conservative groups for extra scrutiny. The protest is expected to be the biggest Tea Party protest since 2010. Obama says the NSA surveillance programs have saved lives, averted at least 50 terror threats, and we don't know what else. Trying to tamp down concerns about government overreach, Obama on Wednesday defended U.S. internet and phone surveillance programs as narrowly targeted efforts that have saved lives and thwarted at least 50 terror threats. This is not a situation in which we are rifling through ordinary emails, he said, calling the program a circumscribed, narrow surveillance program. Really? You're not watching huge numbers of people? Well, then I must be pretty important, Mr. Momser, because your PRISM program has been surveilling Beastwatch News. Firefox's new plugin sings its little Pink Floyd song at my site. But forget the NSA, the DHS, the IRS, and all that other stuff, and even forget Islam. The U.S. is conducting exercises focusing on a fictional Free American Citizens group wearing Uncle Sam hats. While two brothers reportedly motivated by Islamic fundamentalism were carrying out the Boston Marathon bombing, the city was hard at work planning a mass casualty terrorism training exercise in which the perpetrators were American militiamen whose logo includes Uncle Sam hats. The Boston Globe revealed the plot of Operation Urban Shield, a simulation by the Department of Homeland Security costing $200,000. The program was slated to take place last weekend to train local Boston law enforcement agencies to work together to thwart a homemade terrorist threat. The Boston newspaper reported officials from a dozen agencies had been meeting for months to plan the simulation and had already recruited students from Northeastern University and the Boston Police Academy to play the parts of terrorists and witnesses. Vice President Biden is about to make another gun control push to Congress. It is unclear whether he will explicitly call for a vote on expanded background checks, which is the centerpiece of those proposals, but a senior administration official told reporters that Biden will make that push because the White House says it's winning the gun control debate. Heads up, the Supreme Court has decided that your silence can be used against you. What it means to you is if you remain silent before police read you your Miranda rights, that silence can and will be held against you. Russia's President Putin has suggested that war may be necessary to stop Monsanto. In shocking minutes relating to President Putin's meeting last month with the U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, the Russian leader expressed extreme outrage over the Obama regime's continued protection of global seed and plant biogenetics and said that it most certainly will lead to war. This is Beastwatch News Daily Update. See these and other stories at beastwatchnews.com. Bible prophecy news every day except Shabbat.